Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about a specific way I experienced gender socialization and how it shaped my understanding of masculinity. For me, one of the key experiences was being encouraged to play sports, specifically soccer and track. Sports were presented as something boys should do, whether to stay active, learn discipline, or simply become tougher. In my community, there was always this expectation that boys who played sports were proving their masculinity in a way that girls were not expected to. Growing up, I was always encouraged to be physically competitive, and soccer and track became the outlets where this was most obvious. In both sports, there were lessons about what it meant to be a boy. I learned that being tough, pushing through pain, and being aggressive were all part of what it meant to succeed. There was a lot of reinforcements of the idea that success in these sports was a marker of not just athletic ability, but also masculinity. Boys were expected to be physically dominant. Even when I was struggling with injuries, like my shin splints and my hamstrings, the message was always clear. Push through, man up, and don't show weakness. This taught me a lot about gender and how society links masculinity to physical strength and emotional toughness. There's this unspoken rule that boys and men must be resilient and competitive, not just in sports, but also in life. Looking back at it, I realized that this message was reinforced everywhere, from coaches who encouraged aggressive play to peers who questioned the masculinity of boys who didn't engage in sports as intensively. This expectation aligned with the broader societal themes of men being physically dominant and always in control. The pressure to conform these ideals was enormous, and those who didn't were sometimes seen as less masculine and weak. What's interesting to me is how the meaning of sports and masculinity has evolved over time. In the past, sports were almost known as always male dominant, reinforcing traditional gender roles that tied masculinity to physical strength. But over the last few decades, women have made huge strides in sports, challenging the idea that only men can be competitive and tough. Even so, in many parts of the world, sports like soccer and football are still seen as more masculine. Yet, in some cultures, the gender expectations around sports are completely different. For example, in a lot of countries in Europe, sports participation isn't as gendered, showing that these ideas about masculinity and femininity are not biological, but socially constructed. For a long time, I accepted these ideas without question. I didn't realize how much the pressure to be physically tough and competitive was shaping my sense of what it meant to be a man. But as I grew older, I started to question these norms. Why should pushing through physical pain or never showing emotion be the defining traits of masculinity? Now I still value the lessons I learned through sports. Lessons like discipline, teamwork, and perseverance. But I also recognize that being a man is more than just being tough or competitive. There's no one way to define masculinity, and we shouldn't feel trapped by the expectations society has placed on us. In conclusion, my experiences with playing soccer and running track are a reflection of how gender is socially constructed. I was taught to view sports as a way to prove my masculinity, and this aligned with the societal expectations of men. Over time, I've come to understand that these norms are not fixed and that there's more than one way to express masculinity. By challenging these ideas and thinking critically about how gender is shaped by society, I've been able to develop a deeper and more understanding of my identity.